For 7,000 cycles, the stars belonged to the Kryn Collective. Their empire, a sprawling dominion of 42 systems, was built on methodical precision and overwhelming force. They weren't cruel masters, but their rule was absolute. Resistance was futile, and mercy, a concept they understood in theory, but never practiced. At the heart of this empire sat the Tribunal of Three, the ancient rulers who had guided the collective since its birth. Today, as golden light streamed through the crystalline walls of their command chamber, they gathered for what seemed a routine matter. General Tharos stood before them, his crimson armor gleaming. At only 200 cycles old, he was young for his rank, but his record was flawless. 12 campaigns, 12 victories. He had never lost a battle, never retreated, never questioned an order. The collective prized such loyalty above all. The survey team has identified a new world, Tharos began, his voice echoing in the vast chamber. He activated a holographic projection. A blue planet materialized, rotating slowly, its surface a swirl of oceans and clouds. The inhabitants call it Earth. They are a young species, barely 300,000 cycles old. They achieved basic spaceflight only 60 cycles ago. Elder Venix, the first of the tribunal, leaned forward, his silver eyes studying the hologram. Military capabilities? Minimal, Tharos replied. Chemical propulsion rockets, nuclear fission weapons. Their entire military couldn't scratch the paint on our smallest frigate. Then, why waste the tribunal's time? Asked Elder Morphus II, his voice sharp with impatience. Add them to the integration schedule and proceed. Normally, I would agree, Tharos said carefully. However, something unusual has occurred. We have received warnings. The third elder, Kasara, tilted her head. In 7,000 cycles, she had seen species beg, threaten, and negotiate. But she'd never heard of warnings arriving before the collective even announced its intentions. From the humans? No, from others. Tharos brought up more data. The Drell Consortium has withdrawn all their trading vessels from the Sol system. When we questioned them, they simply said they would not be present when we arrived. The Drell are merchants and cowards, Venix scoffed. They flee their own shadows. 3 days later, Tharos continued, we received a transmission from the Singing Stones of Praxis 4. He paused, knowing this would command their full attention. The Singing Stones were ancient beyond measure, vast living formations that observed all but spoke rarely, perhaps once in 1,000 cycles. What did they say? Kasara asked, her tone now serious. Tharos played the transmission. A sound filled the chamber, not quite music, not quite speech. When translated, it formed a single chilling phrase. The sleeper must not be disturbed. Silence descended. The three elders exchanged a look, a silent conversation passing between them. What sleeper? Morphus finally asked. What does this mean? Unknown, Tharos admitted. Our xenologists are stumped. We sent a follow-up inquiry, but they have not responded. Perhaps it's a natural phenomenon on Earth, Venix suggested. A dormant supervolcano, something that could threaten a landing force. That was my initial thought, Tharos said. So I ordered detailed geological surveys. Earth is stable. Whatever the Singing Stones meant, it is not geological. Elder Kasara rose and walked toward the holographic Earth, studying it intently. There is a third warning, isn't there, General? I can see it in your stance. You wouldn't bring us just two. Tharos nodded reluctantly. Yesterday, we received an unexpected visitor. Ambassador Quinn of the Luminal Accord. All three elders stiffened. The Luminal Accord wasn't an empire. It was something older, stranger, a loose alliance of beings who existed partially outside normal space. They claimed to observe the flow of time itself. The collective had encountered them only twice in its history, and both times the Luminals had simply watched and left without a word. What did the ambassador say? Kasara asked quietly. She appeared in my private quarters without warning, Tharos reported. She told me that Earth is not what it appears to be, that humanity is not a young species taking its first steps, but something that has been preparing for a very long time. She said that if we attack them, we will learn what true war means. Threats, Morphus said flatly. The Luminals are trying to manipulate us. Perhaps, Tharos agreed. But Ambassador Quinn said one more thing before she vanished. She said that in all the timelines she can perceive, in all the possible futures that branch from this moment, there is not a single path where the Kryn Collective conquers Earth. Not one. The chamber was utterly still. Elder Venix rose and approached the hologram, his hand passing through the light as if to touch the blue planet. You believe these warnings? I believe they are unprecedented, Tharos said. 3 separate ancient sources, all saying the same thing. Do not go to Earth. We have never received such warnings before. Not from the Drell, not from the Singing Stones, and certainly not from the Luminal Accord. What do you recommend? Cassara asked. Tharos stood taller. His training screened for one answer, but a deeper instinct whispered another. I recommend we send a diplomatic mission first. Open communication with the humans. Learn more before committing to integration. Morphus let out a harsh laugh. Diplomacy? With a species that still kills each other over land and ideas? They are children playing with fire. We would be doing them a favor. And if the warnings are accurate? Tharos pressed. If there is something on Earth we don't understand, then we will discover it and deal with it, Venix said firmly. The Collective has faced unknown threats before. We have defeated enemies who outnumbered us 1,000 to 1. We have never retreated from a challenge, and we will not start now because of vague prophecies. Cassara looked at Tharos with something like sympathy. You have fought well, General. You're cautioned as you credit. But the Tribunal's decision is made. You will take the 6th Fleet to Earth. You will offer them integration or annihilation. If they resist, you will subjugate them. That is the Collective way. Tharos bowed deeply, his heart heavy. As the Tribunal commands. He left the chamber and walked the long corridors of the capital ship. The 6th Fleet was already assembling in high-orbit 800 vessels, enough firepower to sterilize 12 planets. Surely, it was enough for one primitive world. Yet, he couldn't shake the image of Ambassador Quinn's face. She hadn't looked angry or threatening. She had looked sad, the way you might look at a friend about to make a terrible, irreversible mistake. In his quarters, Tharos pulled up every file on Earth. He studied their history, their wars, their art, their music. He searched for any hint of hidden power, any secret weapon that could explain the warnings. He found nothing. They were exactly what they seemed. A young, violent, creative species, still learning to get along with itself. They fought over resources, land, and beliefs. By every metric, they were utterly unremarkable. So why had 3 of the oldest powers in the galaxy warned the Collective away? Tharos closed the files and prepared for departure. In 6 days, the 6th Fleet would reach Earth. In 6 days, he would have his answer. He just hoped he would survive long enough to understand it. Thank you for watching. What do you think the secret of Earth is? Let us know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this story, be sure to like this video and subscribe for more deep dives into the unknown. We'll see you in the next one. The 6th Fleet emerged from the void of hyperspace at the very edge of the Sol system, appearing like a swarm of silent metal predators. 800 warships materialized in perfect, menacing formation, their dark hulls gleaming against the distant starlight. On the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Resolve, General Tharos watched the tactical displays ignite with fresh sensor data. All ships reporting successful translation, his tactical officer announced, his voice a gravelly rasp. Lieutenant Garrick was a veteran of 30 campaigns, his reptilian scales marked with the scars of battles fought on 12 different worlds. No damage, no stragglers. The fleet is at full combat readiness. Scan the system, Tharos ordered, his voice calm but carrying the weight of absolute authority. I want a complete tactical picture within the hour. Locate all human vessels, all stations, all military installations, and keep a vigilant watch for anything unusual. The bridge crew worked in the efficient silence of a well-oiled machine. Tharos had drilled them relentlessly during the long journey, preparing for every contingency he could possibly imagine. But as the initial data began to flow in, everything looked exactly as their survey reports had indicated. 8 planets orbiting a common yellow star. A dense asteroid belt between the 4th and 5th planets. The majority of human activity was concentrated on the 3rd planet, a vibrant blue marble, and its solitary moon, with smaller outposts scattered across the red surface of the 4th planet. It was all so predictable. Human communications networks are active, the signals officer reported from her console. They have definitely detected our arrival. We're picking up multiple electromagnetic transmissions originating from Earth, their moon, and their orbital stations. Can you translate? Tharos asked, his gaze fixed on the main view screen. Working on it, sir. Their languages are complex, but our linguistics database is making progress. The officer paused, listening intently to something through her neural link. A flicker of confusion crossed her face. Sir, this is odd. The transmissions? They're not what we expected. A cold sensation, a premonition he hadn't felt in years, ran through Tharos's body. Explain. There are no emergency broadcasts, no military alerts, no signs of panic. The humans are simply continuing their normal communications. Weather reports, entertainment broadcasts, commercial transactions. Sir, it's as if they haven't noticed us at all. That is impossible, Garrick grumbled from his station. 800 warships appearing in their system would be visible to even their most primitive sensors. They see us, the signals officer confirmed, her voice now tinged with uncertainty. We've intercepted multiple transmissions between their military installations, acknowledging our presence. But they are not responding to us. They are just watching. Tharos strode to the main viewport and stared at the distant blue planet. Earth hung in the darkness like a perfect jewel, peaceful and eerily quiet. Too quiet. In every other first contact scenario he had studied or experienced, the primitive species had reacted. They either tried to communicate or they prepared for battle. They begged for mercy or they threatened retaliation. They did something asterisk. This profound, unnerving silence was a puzzle he couldn't solve. It felt wrong. Open a channel, Tharos commanded, his voice sharp. All frequencies. I want them to receive this message, no matter what technology they are using. The communications officer nodded, her fingers flying across her console. Channel open, sir. You are broadcasting system-wide. Tharos took a steadying breath, his voice resonating with imperial power. People of Earth, this is General Tharos of the Kryn Collective. Your world has been selected for integration into our glorious empire. This is not a request. It is an inevitability. However, we are a merciful people, and we offer you a choice. Submit peacefully, accept our guidance, and your species will be preserved under our protection. Resist, and you will be pacified by overwhelming force. You have 12 of your hours to respond. He closed the channel, and the bridge fell silent once more, the only sound the soft hum of the ship's systems. Tharos waited. The minutes ticked by, stretching into an hour. The silence from Earth continued, absolute and unbroken. Their civilian satellites kept transmitting their mundane data about weather patterns and stock prices. Their patrol ships continued their lazy, predictable routes. Nothing changed. It was as if his ultimatum had been broadcast into an empty void. This is a test, Garrick suggested, breaking the tense quiet. A foolish bluff. They are trying to appear unafraid, hoping to intimidate us into leaving. Or they are simply too primitive to understand the gravity of the situation. Another officer chimed in from the engineering bit. Perhaps they think we are some kind of elaborate hoax, a piece of their fiction. Tharos didn't believe either explanation. He had studied the humans extensively during the long journey. They were not stupid. Their science was limited, yes, but their capacity for cunning and strategic thinking was evident throughout their bloody, turbulent history. They knew what a threat looked like. They had been a threat to each other for millennia. "Sir," a sensor officer's voice cut through the air, sharp with urgency. "We are detecting movement. Multiple human vessels are changing course. Where are they going?" Tharos demanded, turning back to the tactical display. "Inward, toward Earth. All their ships in the outer system are returning to their home world. Space stations are evacuating non-essential personnel. They appear to be consolidating their forces. Preparing for battle," Eric said with a grim smile of satisfaction. Finally, a response we can understand. But something about the pattern bothered Tharos deeply. He pulled up the main tactical display and zoomed in, studying the movement of the human vessels. They were not scrambling in panic. They were not rushing into disorganized defensive positions. They were moving with a calm, measured precision. It was deliberate. It was orderly. It was as if they were following a plan they had prepared long, long ago. "How many military vessels do they have?" Tharos asked the tactical officer. "Approximately 300, sir. Most are small patrol craft. 12 are larger vessels they classify as destroyers. None of them, not even their largest, pose a credible threat to even our scout ships. 300 primitive ships against his 800 state-of-the-art warships. Primitive technology against proven weapons that had conquered and pacified 42 worlds. It should have been no contest. The outcome was a statistical certainty. So why did Tharos feel like he was standing on the edge of a precipice, missing a crucial, terrifying piece of the puzzle? "Sir, we are receiving a transmission from Earth," the communications officer announced, her eyes wide. "Audio only. Human language. Our systems are translating now." "Play it," Tharos commanded. A voice filled the bridge, speaking in clear, measured, and shockingly calm tones. The translation overlay gave it a slightly artificial quality, but the meaning was unmistakable. "General Tharos of the Kryn Collective, this is Director Nathaniel High of the United Earth Defense Council. We received your message. We decline your offer of integration." Varric let out a short, derisive laugh. "They decline? As if they have a choice." He was about to say more, but the communications officer held up a hand. "There is more, sir," she said, her voice hushed. The human voice continued, its calmness sending a shiver down Tharos's spine. "You have traveled a great distance to reach our system. You have been warned by others not to come here. We know you have. You chose to ignore those warnings. That was your choice, and we respect it. But understand this. Every species that has contacted us has offered the same two options: submit or die. We have heard this threat before. We have considered it carefully. And we have prepared our answer." Tharos leaned forward, his entire being focused on the disembodied voice. "Go on." "You see us as a young species, primitive and weak. You see 300 ships against your 800. You see a single planet with no interstellar empire. You believe you understand what you face. You are wrong. We are not going to beg for mercy. We are not going to threaten you with weapons we do not have. We are simply going to tell you the truth. Earth is not a cradle. It is not a nursery for an innocent species. It is a forge. For 300,000 years, we have been at war with ourselves, refining the art of conflict into something you cannot comprehend. We have fought with stones and spears. We have fought with swords and arrows. We have fought with machines and bombs. We have killed billions of our own kind and learned from every death." The bridge of the collective warship had fallen completely silent. Every officer was listening now, their earlier confidence fading under the weight of the human's words. General Tharos felt his skin prickle. The transmission continued, its calm tone more unnerving than any shouted threat. "We have studied war the way you study star charts. We have written books about it, created philosophies around it, built entire civilizations on the foundation of organized violence. When we finally reached for the stars, we did not do so in peace. We did so because we knew that one day someone like you would come, and we wanted to be ready." Tharos felt his heart's beating faster. This was not the plea of a cornered animal. This was something else entirely. "Cut the transmission," he commanded, his voice tight. "Sir, they are still broadcasting," the communications officer replied, his own composure wavering. "I said cut it." Tharos barked. The officer complied, and silence returned to the bridge. But the damage was done. Tharos could see the seeds of uncertainty planted in the faces of his crew. The human words, delivered without anger or fear, just as a calm statement of fact, had been more disturbing than any war cry. "Psychological warfare," his second-in-command Garrick said, though his voice lacked conviction. "They are trying to frighten us with words because they have no real weapons." "Perhaps," Tharos said quietly. But his thoughts drifted to the cryptic warning from Ambassador Quinn. In all the countless timelines she could foresee, the mighty collective never conquered Earth, not a single one. "Sir, the human ships have reached Earth orbit," the tactical officer reported, his voice pulling Tharos back to the present. "They are taking up positions around the planet. A defensive formation." Tharos studied the main view screen. The human vessels, small and outdated by collective standards, were arranged in a perfect sphere around their world. Each one was positioned with mathematical precision. It was not the scattered, desperate deployment of a species about to be annihilated. It was the calm, practiced formation of a military that knew exactly what it was doing. This was the posture of a seasoned warrior, not a frightened child. "They have had 12 hours, Garrick said, his impatience growing. "They have given their answer. I request permission to begin the assault." Tharos knew he should have given the order. The tribunal had commanded him to integrate or subjugate Earth. The humans had refused integration. The next step was clear, logical, and inevitable. And yet he hesitated. Something felt profoundly wrong. "Sir?" Garrick pressed, his hand hovering over the weapons console. Before Tharos could respond, every screen on the bridge suddenly changed. The tactical displays, the communication panels, even the ambient environmental controls, all went black and then lit up with the same image. A human face. Male, with dark skin and graying hair, wearing a simple, unadorned uniform. The same face appeared on every ship in the entire fleet, simultaneously. "Greetings, General Tharos," the human said. He was smiling, but it was not a warm or welcoming expression. It was the smile of a predator that had just cornered its prey. "Allow me to introduce myself properly. I am Director Hall, and I speak for humanity. I noticed you cut off my previous transmission. That was rude, but understandable. The truth can be uncomfortable." Tharos stared, stunned. The audacity was breathtaking. "How did you penetrate our systems?" he demanded, his voice a low growl. "We did not penetrate anything," Halle replied smoothly, his image flickering on dozens of screens around the general. "You opened communication channels to us. We simply used them more effectively than you expected. Now, I want you to look at your sensor displays. The real ones, not the ones we have been feeding you for the past several hours." Garrick moved quickly to his station, his fingers flying across the controls. A look of disbelief, then horror, crossed his face. "Sir, he's right. Our sensors have been showing us filtered data. Someone has been manipulating our readings since we first entered the system." "Impossible," Tharos breathed. "Our security protocols are unbreakable. They were designed to stop other species with similar technology." Director Halle said from every screen, his voice patient, as if explaining a simple concept to a child. "We are not similar. We are something you have not encountered before. We are an anomaly in your neat, ordered galaxy." A cold dread began to creep up Tharos' spine. He had to ask. He had to know what he was truly facing. "What are you?" Tharos asked, though he was not sure he wanted to hear the answer. Hale's smile widened, all pretense of civility gone. It was a chilling, triumphant grin. "We are what happens when a predator species spends 300,000 years perfecting the art of killing, and then turns that singular, obsessive knowledge toward the stars. You wanted to know why you were warmed away from this system? It's because we have been waiting for someone like you. You are not here to conquer us, General. You are here because we let you come. You walked right into our classroom. And now the lesson begins." The screens went dark. And in that terrifying, absolute silence, Tharos finally understood why 3 ancient, powerful civilizations had warned the collective to stay away from the tiny blue planet called Earth. It wasn't a warning to protect humanity. It was a warning to protect everyone else. But that understanding came far, far too late. For 3 seconds, the darkness was absolute. But in that brief void, General Tharos felt something he hadn't in 200 cycles. Pure, primal fear. When the screens flickered back to life, the universe had shifted. "Sir, weapon systems are offline," Garrick reported, his voice tight with panic. "Shields are fluctuating. Propulsion is at 30% capacity across the entire fleet. How is this possible?" Tharos demanded, moving to the tactical station. His hands flew over the controls, but every command was delayed, or worse, ignored. "They are primitives. They shouldn't even understand our technology." The sensor officer spoke, his voice quiet, chilling. "They don't need to understand it. They're not attacking our systems. They're attacking the mathematics that makes them work. Look, every calculation our computers make is being altered by 0.001%. Just enough to cascade into total failure." On the main display, the human fleet moved. 300 small vessels, specks against the might of a single collective frigate, spread out in what first seemed like chaos. But Tharos saw the pattern emerge. It wasn't random. They were taking positions that turned the collective's own perfect formation into a death trap. Suddenly, every one of his ships was in the crossfire of 3 or 4 others. "They studied us," Tharos whispered, a cold dread creeping into his voice. "They analyzed our tactics from historical records. They know how we fight better than we do." Director Hale's face appeared on the screens again, calm and resolute. "Your tactical doctrine is very efficient, General. You've refined it over 7,000 cycles of conquest. It works perfectly against species that fight the way you expect. But we don't." He paused, his expression softening just a fraction. "I want you to understand, we take no pleasure in what is about to happen. Unlike you, we don't conquer for glory. We fight only when we must. But when we fight to win." "You cannot win," Tharos shot back, though even he could hear the waver of doubt in his own voice. "We have 800 ships. Our weapons can crack planets. Your entire civilization exists on one fragile world." "That is what you see," Hale agreed. "But you're looking at the wrong things. You count our ships, measure our weapons. You think in terms of firepower and armor. That is not how we think." He leaned forward, his eyes holding an ancient, sad wisdom. "We think in terms of vulnerability. Every system has a weakness. Every strength creates a corresponding fragility. You built your empire on overwhelming force, and that very force has made you predictable." "Enough talk," Garrick snarled. "Activate manual weapons control. If our computers are compromised, we'll fight with our own hands." Several officers scrambled to comply, pulling up manual targeting systems that hadn't been used in centuries. But when they tried to fire, nothing happened. The weapons officer stared at his console in disbelief. They anticipated that too. The manual systems? They require the same basic mathematical calculations. If those are corrupted, nothing works. The situation was spiraling. "Fall back," Tharos commanded, his voice strained. "All ships, retreat to the edge of the system." We regroup. The fleet of 800 vessels began its clumsy turn. But the human ships were faster, more agile. They knew exactly where each collective vessel would be before it even moved. They wove through the formation, like needles through cloth, never firing a single shot, simply positioning themselves, blocking every escape route. "They're hurting us," Garrick said, his voice filled with a strange wonder. "Like animals." "We are not animals," Tharos snapped, but the words felt hollow. To these humans, that was exactly what they were. Dangerous animals that had wandered into the wrong territory. A new voice came through the coms, female, younger than Hale. "General Tharos, this is Dr. Sienna Park of the Earth Strategic Defense Initiative. I am a xenopsychologist, and I have been studying your species for the past 6 years." "6 years?" Tharos interrupted. "We only discovered your world 8 months ago." "No," Dr. Park corrected gently. "You only sent your survey ships 8 months ago. We detected your observation posts in the outer system 6 years ago. We've been watching you watch us. We knew you would come. You always do. Your pattern is consistent across 42 conquered worlds." The realization hit Tharos like a physical blow. All of their intelligence, every observation, had been gathered while humanity knew they were being watched. Earth had shown them a carefully constructed illusion of a primitive, harmless species. "You played us," he said, the words barely a whisper. "We showed you what you wanted to see," Dr. Park replied. "A young species, divided and weak. You saw us as easy prey, because that is what your civilization, built on the assumption of superiority, needed to see. You cannot imagine being outmaneuvered by someone you consider primitive." "We are not defeated," Tharos insisted, grasping at straws. "We still outnumber you. We still have superior firepower. Firepower you cannot use," she said. "General, every weapon on every ship in your fleet depends on mathematics being reliable. We've introduced a tiny bit of uncertainty into your systems. Your weapons might fire, or they might explode in their housings. Your shields might hold, or they might collapse and crush your ships. Are you willing to take that chance?" Silence fell across the bridge. Tharos looked at the faces of his officers and saw his own fear reflected back at him. They were warriors, veterans of dozens of campaigns, but they had never faced an enemy like this, an enemy that turned their own strength against them. "What do you want?" Tharos finally asked. The question every conquered species had asked him, now coming from his own mouth. Director Hall reappeared. "We want you to leave. Take your fleet, return to your empire, and never come back. Tell your tribunal what happened here. Tell them that Earth is not available for conquest." "They will not accept this," Tharos said. "The collective has never retreated. They will send a larger fleet. Everything they have." "We know," Hale said sadly. "We've studied your culture. We understand your pride. That is why we're going to give you a gift. Something to take back to your tribunal." The tactical displays suddenly cleared, showing accurate sensor data for the first time. The space around Earth was not empty. It was filled with vast, complex structures, previously hidden. Orbital platforms, massive shipyards, and beyond Earth, on the dark side of the moon, installations that looked like they had been built over decades. "What is all this?" Garrick whispered. "This," Hale said, "is what we've been building while you thought we were primitive. This is why others warned you away. We are not a young species taking our first steps into space. We are an old species that has been preparing for this moment since we first looked up at the stars." Dr. Park's voice joined in. "Humanity spent 300,000 years at war with itself. We developed psychology, strategy, and tactics through endless conflict. When we finally achieved peace 50 years ago, We turned those lessons outward. We knew someone would come, and we prepared. But your technology, Garos protested weakly. Your ships are primitive. What you see is what we wanted you to see, Hale said. The real question isn't what technology we have, but what we are capable of with the technology we choose to show you. If we can do this with our primitive computers, what could we do with our real capabilities? The unspoken threat hung heavy in the air. Tharos realized they had been playing a game while the collective thought it was waging a war. You could have destroyed us, he said. Why didn't you? Because we are not like you, Hale replied, his voice thick with emotion. We don't conquer for the sake of it. We learned, through great suffering, that violence should be the last resort, not the first. But make no mistake, General. We are capable of violence beyond your comprehension. We just choose not to use it unless forced. The screens went dark, then came back online. All systems were functional. The human ships had pulled back, opening a clear path out of the system. Sir, Eric said quietly, your orders? Tharos looked at the blue planet one last time. Somewhere down there, billions of people were going about their lives, unaware of the war that had been averted. They were strong enough to defend themselves, but wise enough to value peace. Set course for home, Tharos said, his voice firm. Full retreat. And record everything. The tribunal needs to see all of it. As the fleet turned away, Tharos wondered if his report would change anything. The tribunal would likely send another fleet, larger and more prepared. But humanity would be ready. Perhaps that was the point. Some lessons have to be taught over and over until finally someone learns. He could only hope that day would come before it was too late for everyone. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more.